What's up, guys? Combat Addict here. Um, Sup, man? I don't know. I don't really have anything to say. I'm gonna be honest. Um, I was I was outside for like 2 hours past 2 days, just skateboarding. Cause I officially don't give a fuck about anything on the internet. So I'm just skateboarding and shit. Cause I tried it the other day. Cause I was tired of being inside and just eating Cheetos and feeling my brain turn into warm plasticine. So I was like, I need to get the fuck out of my house. So I got out, I skateboarded and shit, and I feel good, but I'm sore as fuck now. So sore. My fucking lower back feels like it's been through 3 adult films. My fucking calf feels like just tight. Like my right calf feels tight as shit. Um, yeah, man. Just craziness. So I'm just taking the day off skating. It's kind of wet outside too, so I probably couldn't even skate if I wanted to. Nothing's open. It's coronavirus right now, so that is what that is. I got so much food, man. Like, bro, I went grocery shopping. I came back and I tried to find like room for the shit that I bought, and I was like, oh fuck, I don't even have like space for the shit. And I know it sounds like I'm sucking my own dick right now, because I kind of am, to be honest with you. This is the first time since I moved out where I'm like, not only am I good, but I know I'm good. Like, man, I ain't gotta worry about nothing. Like, usually I know I'm okay, like I know I'm fine, but like now, without, like, beyond a reasonable doubt, like my shit is good, you know? So that's cool. That feels good. We're in a good place right now. So that's just like what's going on with me. Um, Thinking about getting a motherfucking PS4, because I mean we're gonna be in quarantine for the next like 6 months or some shit like that. I like video games. I'm about to pay off that debt from my school that I was talking about, and I want to reward myself by being irresponsible and spending close to $700 on electronics. So that might be happening. Uh, that might be happening soon. Um, in any case, man, that's my life right now. My life is pretty sick. I mean, separating aside from sometimes just being so bored that you conclude that you have depression, but that doesn't last very long anyways. Sorry, I'm just checking my chest for pimples. Sometimes you get chest pimples. Didn't know if I had one or not. Anyways, man, uh decided to do another video today because I have something I want to talk about. Last night I did a live stream with a bunch of other people who were into comedy, and I did a stand up set. I did 2 sets. They were both like 6 minutes or so. One set was about metal, heavy metal, and that one was pretty funny and it wasn't very controversial. The second one that I did, looking back on it now, is way more controversial than I thought it would be. Like, which isn't bad. Like, I'm not really upset about it, but it just got me thinking again. And so I guess the first thing I want to start talking about is just like, um, well, basically, I should probably tell you what I said in the fucking set, right? So I was talking about like what's okay to say in comedy and what's not okay to say, and I said something like, maybe we should be able to say whatever we want as long as we have a pussy disclosure beforehand. And then I listed a bunch of this offensive shit in the disclosure, like, viewer discretion is advised. This following program contains all of these horrible offensive things like racial slurs, stereotypes, and then at the end it's like, and a bunch of funny shit you pussies won't find funny, so don't fucking watch it. And the joke is basically supposed to be like a comment on freedom of expression and the content that we view. Uh, I'm trying to find like a happy medium where if you don't want to hear jokes about uh I don't know, fucking slavery, if you don't want to hear jokes about rape, if you don't want to hear jokes about murder, if you don't want to hear jokes about things like this that will trigger people, then that's fine. All that we need to do is put like an advisory sticker on certain content. That's it. Like, it's literally that simple. Like, you put that, you put an advisory sticker on content, and we problem solved. Like, people don't feel like they're losing their freedom of expression, and other people who have feelings don't feel like, wow, I'm being slighted by this individual. And I think that that's a great fucking idea. This was something that, um, while I had thought about it a long time ago, my with respect to 13 Reasons Why and the suicide scene, my little brother reminded me of this idea. Like, I completely, like, he basically said, well, I think that, what if we had disclosures and stuff, not like a disclosures, but like an advisory like note at the start of like a program or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, I remember like thinking something similar to that would be a good idea. And so the whole joke was about the conversations that I had had with him and other people, and our view of freedom of expression. And I think that what we really need is not just that like little preamble at the beginning, because that really is sort of like a passive form of warning. What we really need is, like, if you got a Netflix special or something like that, there should be like, okay, so you got the thumbnail, right? And then in the bottom corner, there should be literally something like an advisory sticker. If you have that, I don't see why, unless the person is literally, um, what's the word? What's the word? Unless the person is literally inciting hatred or violence or something like that, there shouldn't really be anything wrong with the jokes they want to make, or the things that they want to say, or the topics that they want to cover. Because really, at the end of the day, man, like, you got to understand that this thing about sensitivity, while I think it's actually a really good thing, because I think that I believe that psychological harm exists. I believe it's real. It's not that it's not real. I think that it can be sometimes more painful and long lasting than physical harm. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that it wins out, you know, irrespective of everything else. I think that that's a little bit of an extreme view, and it also leads to things like, okay, well, I mean, if that's really how you feel about it, can people even make a movie where there's like a rape scene in it? You know what I mean? Not like a full rape scene, but can they even hint at it? Can they even make a movie about someone who's been raped? You know what I mean? It's just like, you gotta understand that if you're gonna try and say you can't joke about this, or you can't say this, or you can't say that, what you're really saying is this content is off limits. But the problem with that is that if this content is off limits in this sphere, in this field, in this sphere, it's off limits pretty much everywhere else too. And my whole thing, my entire point this entire time has been this: if that's how you really feel, that's okay. You just have to accept and acknowledge that what you're really doing is burning a field of possibility. You just got to say, no, that is what we're saying. We are saying that you can't have films that have any sort of rape scene. We are saying that you can't have films about traumatic events that have happened. You know what I mean? You can't have a film about, I don't know, 9/11, because fucking, I don't know, somebody feels badly about it. If that's what you're saying, that's fine. You can say that. Like, I'm not saying you can't say that. All I'm trying to say is, if that's really what you want, I think that there's something wrong there, because I really think that you should be able to. I feel like there are some issues that if you say, okay, well, we just can't talk about it, they really don't get better. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just like, you just can't speak about this, I feel like that's actually a detriment. Because if you're just going to sweep this thing under the rug, you're not really giving it room to breathe so much as just locking it in the closet. Not only that, it's like, if somebody has something that they really want to say about this thing, You know what I mean? You're also trying to dictate the terms on which they can say that thing. So if I want to talk about consent and sexual assault, but I'm not the kind of guy who wants to go and picket on Parliament's doorstep, you're basically telling me, if I can't make a joke about it, that I can't really express myself about this thing the way that I would want to. I can only do it in the formats that are acceptable to you. I can talk about rape, but only in a serious fashion. If I talk about it in a joke, it is automatically too much because I'm making light of rape, apparently. But the reality is, the joke that I made is actually in defense of victims of rape. That's the truth. It's a little bit, what's the word? Distasteful, because at one point I say, if you want to know if you've received consent, you just have to ask yourself if you're fucking a person or a bobblehead, and if you're fucking a bobblehead, then you haven't received consent. The joke is shocking, but it's making fun of the idea that somebody could be unsure of whether or not they've received consent when the person that they're having sex with isn't even responding. And it's supposed to be like, if you don't know that when you're fucking somebody and they're not looking at you in the eyes that they're not consenting, it's good that you heard what I said because now you know. You understand what I'm saying? And if you do know that, at the very least you can get the joke that it's ridiculous that someone wouldn't know something like that. And so my whole thing is, now I didn't really think about it until I kind of said the joke, and like I started to think about it more, and I was like, okay, well, it's possible that there's somebody out there who was triggered by this, and should I have made the joke knowing that they could have been triggered? The thing is, it's not like I'm not the kind of person to I'm not gonna make a joke and say the word. I mean, I don't even know if I should say it. I'm not gonna say the F word. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna do that anymore. I used to do that because I thought it was funny. Because it's actually really a funny word. Like, at the end of the day, the word is funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I think I have an accent right now. If that is the case, I want to let you know that the reason I have an accent right now is because I've been reading Trainspotting, a Scottish novel, and while this accent isn't entirely Scottish, I have been reading it in some sort of Irish-Scottish mix, and that's probably why I sound like I have an accent. I assure you that the more I talk, the harder it is to not have an accent. Not only that, it's actually really fun to speak in a Scottish accent. So that's probably what you're hearing right now. But anyways, the point is that there are things like that I wouldn't say, because I recognize that there's freedom of expression, and I don't call things gay anymore either, because I recognize that that's like when, somebody would say, oh, somebody robbed the store the other day, and then like some guy in the corner goes, oh my god, that's so black, and I was like, what the fuck? I mean, it's kind of like, they're joking, but it still hurts. You know what I mean? And so for that reason, those are things that I don't say anymore. But when it's not about the terms, and then it becomes about the content, then that's like really worrying to me, because I'm like, wait, but okay, you gotta like really think about the implications of that. If it's like, okay, you can't joke about this, like you just can't. To me, that's strange. You know what I mean? That's strange. It's like when, it's like if the state believed in blasphemy. You know what I mean? And somebody didn't. Like, somebody didn't believe in blasphemy. And they just had a personal belief that, there is no God or something like that. And they wanted to make a song that didn't glorify God. And it's like, no, you can't make music unless you're glorifying God. It has that kind of a feel to it. And I know it's not the same thing, but what I'm saying is it's not like you're very close to that line and you need to acknowledge it. Like, I'm not saying that, like, I need them to stop pretending like that's not where they're at. Like, they need to acknowledge that this is where it's going. Like, it's clear that you're basically saying, like, okay, I'm telling you now that it's not okay for you to joke about this. Not as if it's like a specific event that's happened. It's not like it's something really, really sensitive where the president was just assassinated or something and somebody makes a joke about it. I mean, even if that was the case, once again, it's like you got to be able to talk about these things. But just a concept generally, like, you can no longer make jokes about, I don't know, what is something? Suicide. You can't make jokes about it. Because if you make a joke about suicide, people who have tried to commit suicide or people who are, suicidal can be triggered by that. And my whole thing is, okay, well, what if the artist themselves is suicidal, or the artist themselves has had some experience with suicide, and this is their way of dealing with it. This is their way of talking to a crowd of people and trying to bring awareness to an aspect of suicide that they never thought about, or maybe an aspect of suicide that the artist has thought about, that they think is valuable in some way. What if that's what they're doing? And, like, my whole thing is just this, man. Like, if you're gonna say, well, you can't joke about that, like, you gotta accept that there's a lot of stuff that you're not gonna be able to joke about. Now, that's the one side of the argument, okay? The other side is this. We all know pretty much what you probably can and what you probably can't joke about. I know that I'm probably not supposed to joke about rape. That will probably trigger, like, a lot of women. I know that you're probably not supposed to joke about... I mean, to be honest, you're probably not supposed to joke about suicide. You're probably not supposed to joke about just a bunch of sensitive issues. You probably shouldn't make jokes about transgender people. It's just mean. And to be honest with you, it'd be like if we were just creating a bunch of jokes at the expense of gays, or just a bunch of jokes at the expense of Asians. You know what I mean? And the punchline seems to be that these people think that they are a man or a woman, but they're not. And it's not transphobic, it's ignorant. And that's the thing. I want to say this. People are like, you're a transphobe. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, that's not... Because I think that somebody who's transphobic, like, hates trans people, like, doesn't believe that trans people have the right to do what they want with their body. That's what I believe a transphobe is. I believe that somebody who maybe just makes a joke about a transphobe or a transgender person is probably just ill-informed and can't see the perspective. That's what I really think it is. They can't see the perspective. So I'm actually really upset with the way that we're labeling people like that now, because it sort of makes it so that the actual transphobes can hide in this mass of people who are not transphobes. And that's dumb. Like, for both, like, it's not good for either side, is what I'm trying to say. If you really want to get transphobes, the thing to do is not to call somebody who's just a little bit ignorant a transphobe. That's not the thing to do. Because then, how are you going to differentiate between the people who are actually transphobic, who actually believe like something is wrong with trans people and they should not be able to or be allowed to, or I hate them because, how are you going to distinguish between them and the guy who just thinks like, hey man, like the reality of the situation is gender and sex are two different things. And while I believe that transgender people should be able to transition, I don't think that biologically they are the gender that they assign themselves to be. That doesn't mean that they aren't, that I'm not going to say their pronouns or whatever. I just don't think that you can will yourself to be the opposite sex. You can only will yourself to be the opposite gender or something like that. See, this is like sort of, well, I'll lay that in more detail, but like, this is a viewpoint that someone might like point and be like, you're a transphobe. And maybe it's maybe not that one. Maybe that one's a little nuanced, and so they wouldn't say it to that one. Maybe they'd say it to somebody who was like, oh, Bruce Jenner's a guy. He's a guy. They dead name him, and then they say he's a guy. They say he's a guy. I believe he has the right to change himself into a woman or whatever, but he's not a woman. You know what I mean? Is what they're gonna say. People like that, they're not transphobic. They don't hate trans people. They just cannot make the leap that I think that they need to make. Here's the breakdown of trans people before we get to comedy and what you can say and what you can't say and being politically correct. Here's the breakdown of trans people, okay? And I fucking hate this because people have gotten this wrong and I don't understand how. I don't know how they've gotten it wrong because we talk about it all the fucking time. And so the fact that they're still conflating these two things to me, like you can tell I'm like visibly annoyed. It's just fucking ridiculous because I feel like if we just cleared this out in the mainstream media, there wouldn't be a problem. Your gender is a construct. I'm sure we can all agree that. I'm sure we can all agree that I wasn't born with my gender. Okay? That means that if somebody says, I identify as a woman, but they have a penis, they're not wrong. They're right. If they really do identify as a woman, what are you gonna fucking say? No, they don't? That's like saying, okay, my favorite ice cream is chocolate. And some asshole over there is going to go, your favorite ice cream isn't chocolate. You're black. Black people's favorite ice cream is strawberry. That's what that's like. To me, it's like a preferential thing at the end of the day. But the difference is this preference is entwined with identity. That's what gender is. Gender is this thing, this idea that you have of yourself with respect to traits that are masculine or feminine in some way. That's kind of how I see it. And that can be different throughout all societies. Like even men who identify as men don't even have the same idea of what it is to be a man. All of their genders are different. You realize that? Because your gender is how you see yourself. And if you believe that what it is to be a man is different from what this guy over here thinks it is to be a man, then we've got gender A man and gender B man. People are always complaining like, oh, there's a million different genders. Well, the fucking truth of the matter is, even if we didn't have trans people, there would still be a million different fucking genders. Because there's also a million different fucking countries in the world with different ideas of what it is to be a man or a woman. And all of these things are tied to gender. And that's why when people say we're doing a gender reveal, I get so fucking annoyed. I'm like, no, you're not doing a fucking gender reveal. You can't do a gender reveal until somebody's an adult and they've like lived their life and made a decision for themselves. You're doing a sex reveal. These are two different things. And that, let me just say this, is Okay, it's not a bad thing. Like, it's not bad that your sex and your gender are separate. That's not bad. Okay? And let me just make this even more clear. From now on, when I say man or woman, I'm referring to gender. But when I say male or female, I am referring to sex. That is the difference you have to understand in order to get why Caitlyn Jenner is a woman, even though she was born a male. And that's the part where I think they don't get it. They're like, whatever, like, you're a man, you're a man. It's like, no, she's not a fucking man. She was born as a male, she's transitioned to female, and she is now a woman. That's what it is. I didn't understand this before. I had what people would consider transphobic views before. They weren't transphobic views. I didn't hate trans people. I didn't think that trans people shouldn't be able to transition. I didn't think anything less of trans people. I didn't have a beef with trans people. I just didn't fucking understand them. And this is why I think it's really bad that we're like saying that people are transphobic when it's like, man, you really got to ask yourself, like, that's like, okay, so say some Asian guy or some white guy or some Indian guy goes, you know, there's some truth to the stereotype that black people like basketball and that a lot of the people in the NBA are black for the most part. There's some truth to that. And somebody goes, you're racist. Okay. Even if you want to say that his statement is false in some way, and you have statistics to disprove it. I don't know. I haven't studied this. My point is that this individual, whether they're misinformed or not, whether their point is legitimate or not, is definitely not, based on that statement at face value, racist. Like, that is absurd. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you could say he's kind of ignorant. You could say he's kind of misinformed. But to call him racist right away, that's strange. And it's the same thing with the transphobic thing. You gotta understand that, like, this is a new fucking thing, okay? People don't understand. So you can't just, like, you gotta wait until the society clearly understands the thing before you can just start labeling people like that. And even when the society does fully understand it, even if their view is a little bit nuanced, like, you would just be labeling them transphobic without even hearing them out. You know what I mean? And to me, it's clear that you guys don't fucking get it, because you keep talking about gender reveals. It makes no fucking sense. Now, I know that somebody watching this, if they are watching this, is going to say something like, well, you know, sex that you're talking about isn't so binary as you think. There are people who are in between. Okay, look, I fucking get that. There are people in between, whatever. We've got some intersex people who are extremely fucking rare, mind you. I get it. There are some women who are more masculine and some men who are more feminine. But what we're talking about are your gonads. That is what I'm going to base this off of. Fuck all the other shit. I completely understand that not every woman is, not every female is prototypically female, and not every male is prototypically male. I understand that, okay? But what I do understand is that most people either have a dick that works or they have a vagina that works. That's just the truth. This is sex. There is the difference, okay? So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that until we can all get those terms labeled in the right places in the right way, we'll never be able to explain to these people who make insensitive jokes about trans people why their joke is insensitive or wrong. Because as far as they can tell, they don't understand what the fuck is going on. They're like, what the fuck do you mean? What do you mean you're a man? You were born a woman. No, you were born a female. That's what you have to say to them for them to understand it. At least because that's how I understand it. Because I didn't get it for the longest time. But I realized that it's something similar to just man, how do you view yourself outside of like, who are you outside of your gender and your race and your social class? Who are you? What is integral to you? Some people would say, well, integral to me is the fact that I'm a martial artist, or integral to me is the fact that I'm a musician, or integral to me is the fact that I'm a dancer. I am this thing. I feel it in my bones that I am this thing. That is what they are saying, but about something that they feel is deeper than those things. You understand what I'm saying? And if you can get that into the head of somebody who's making an insensitive joke like that, I think that they would understand better that their joke is very painful for people who are listening to them. Because not only are they being misunderstood, they're basically being mocked, because it's like their grievance isn't valid. And that's mean. You know what I mean? It hurts. That's a hurtful thing. But I will tell you this. If it wasn't for these jokes, if it wasn't for this controversy, and if it wasn't for this discussion, do you think it might be possible that people who do see it the way that I see it now, maybe I see it right, maybe I see it wrong, I don't know. Do you think that there would be more people like me? Or do you think that there would be less? That is the question that I'm asking you. What I'm trying to say is, like, I'm not saying that all trans jokes are justified now. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I believe that the process that we have of discussing these things in the public sphere sort of gets much harder when you start to limit those things which you can talk about that aren't quite settled yet. There are some things that are pretty much settled. We know that Jews are not, evil, conniving individuals who need to be purged. We know that there is no biological justification for race. But not everybody knows the reality of the transgender community. And so when people make jokes about it, I'm not saying that they need to be able to make these jokes all the time, but I am saying that when they do make these jokes, what I hope that people do is try to educate them in the way that I just tried to educate you, rather than to be like, you're a transphobe and you need to be canceled. The issue is that people are like, well, what about platforms? And I get that. Freedom of expression and platforms. The truth of the matter is, man, like, you can't deny that there is some damage done by some comedian making a joke about trans people that is sort of dismissive of their belief, that they are of their identity. You can't deny that there's some damage done there. They've got a huge following. And what it does is sort of repeat what some would call antiquated views to those followers, and maybe justifies them. What I would hope it does is creates dialogue. But I'm learning more and more as I grow, unfortunately, that dialogue doesn't, you know what dialogue works for? Dialogue does not work to change people's minds in the moment. Dialogue works to get people thinking about it outside of the conversation. That's what dialogue is good for. And so while it's a risk, you kind of want to hope that people who maybe have the wrong view of things, because I think that a lot of the views about trans people are wrong right now. I don't think that people really understand trans people. I think that even some of the advocates for trans people don't understand trans people. The fact that, like, once again, the fact that a gender reveal exists, to me, suggests that people don't really understand that this is something that you feel, and that you can't reveal a gender of a baby because it doesn't feel anything yet. But it's so sad because it's like, man, if we just like properly educated people about that, I feel like so many things would be better. But my point is, dialogue and getting people to talk about it, to bring up these ideas that they have entrenched in their minds, is at least better than just telling them that they can't talk about it. Because if you do that, there's no room for any new idea to enter their mind. I mean, the controversy is almost good in that at the very least, somebody who maybe has the wrong idea about things might get into an argument with somebody who has the right idea about things, and a seed might be planted, hopefully. But once again, psychological harm is real, and so I've basically decided, in my mind, what we really need to do, and be honest with ourselves here, is create like a blocking mechanism. Like, we need to create a safe space and a free space. There needs to be two spaces. It can't be one way or the other. It needs to be both. Because if it's political correctness all the way, we lose dialogue, we lose honesty, and we turn into what I see, to be honest with you, I'm not even fucking kidding you, I feel this, what I see to be sort of just yelling down your opponents and being self-righteous, and it's easy to be self-righteous and be wrong when you're self-righteous. And that's the thing about self-righteousness that's terrifying, because people make asses of themselves because they think they're right. And then they do horrible things and say horrible things. Ben Affleck is a perfect example of somebody who just thought he was so right that he could act however he wanted and just speak however he wanted to the people he was speaking to, because he was right. No, Ben, you're an asshole. They have a nuanced view and you're not fucking getting the point. So I don't want to go too far that way, but I also don't want to go too far this way, because the truth of the matter is, I do feel a sting when, and I don't know why, it's not like it shouldn't mean anything to me when somebody says nigger. It shouldn't. It just does. It probably does mean something to me, though, because I have been called a nigger at a dinner table before. I've been called a nigger in a restaurant before. It was McDonald's, actually. I have had people hold their purses. I've been given dirty looks by old white men. So maybe that's why I feel it. So I don't want to go too far this way, because at the end of the day, man, like, you're really, I mean, you could have people who are really trying to do the dog whistle thing. You could have people who are really making a joke, but in such a way that they can get their hatred out and not be caught for it. And so what I would like to propose is, instead of just having it one way or the other, you create two spaces. And you do this by limiting content, okay? There are movies with R ratings. There are movies with PG ratings. There are movies with G ratings. My joke about the pussy disclosure is fucking real. I'm serious. I think that people, and it's not that they're pussies. Here's the thing. It's a joke for a reason. I don't think that they're pussies. I think that they're sensitive people. I think that they have checkered pasts, and I think that there are some things that affect them in a kind of way. That's what I really think. But I say a pussy disclosure because A, it's funnier, and B, I don't know. I just like it. It's controversial. I just like it, you know. But you need to have ratings. You know what I mean? You need to have new ratings. And if you put out a Netflix special, it shouldn't just be this is, you know, mature content. No, fuck that. It's not just mature content, okay? Because mature content is one thing. Sensitive content is another thing. And we need to have distinctions. This set contains jokes about, and it needs to list all of the offensive things that the set contains. And there needs to be like a sticker or something on the front of it that tells you before you even click the thing, like, hey, just so you know, there are some politically sensitive issues in this special. And before you can start the special, it needs to say, and here's the thing, it will be inconvenient for comedians because they will never be able to air those specials on general television. And here's the thing, I sort of believe that, and once again, it doesn't always have to be through subscription. You know, if they really want people to be able to see it for free or whatever, you know what I mean? They can put it on YouTube, but also have that label on the YouTube video that people can go and watch for free. But they'll never be able to, and I think that this is fair for everybody, for people who don't want to be triggered just at home watching TV on a Thursday night, and also for people who maybe are okay with being hurt a little bit by a joke, or are okay, or who maybe don't get hurt by jokes at all. We shouldn't air that shit on regular TV. We just shouldn't. And if we do air it on regular TV, just cut the part with the politically sensitive shit out. And if we did that, I really don't feel like there'd be no reason for anybody to give a fuck about anything. Unless the person isn't actually joking, and it's questionable whether the person is actually joking, or it's questionable if the content is actually, you know, not trying to incite violence or hatred or something like that. You know what I mean? And I mean really obviously not trying to incite, you know, hatred, you know, something really obvious. Then I think that would be fine. I don't think that the answer is, okay, well, you just can't joke about this now. I think that that's fucking stupid. And I think that that's close-minded. And I think that it's like, there's ways around this. There's ways around this, and we're just not choosing to find the ways around it. And that being said, I don't think it would be tasteful for someone to have one of those stickers and go on stage and say the F word, the N word, the S word, the C word for Asians, all in the same sentence, because A, that wouldn't be funny. It would just kind of be rude for no reason. But if somebody wants to use one of these words, they just have to disclose beforehand that, hey, I say this. And if you're not okay with that, or you don't fuck with that, or you don't support that, then, you know, maybe you shouldn't watch this. Maybe you don't want to watch this. You know what I mean? And even when you have those stickers, there's still etiquette. Like, there's still some things where it's like, if somebody makes a joke about it and it's out of taste, we as the audience, we as the viewers can have a discussion about, like, look, man, even with this label, I honestly thought that this joke was in poor taste. I'm not saying shame on you. I'm just telling you that I didn't like it. And then the comedians will get that feedback, or the movie producers, or whoever, the TV show makers will get that feedback, and they'll say, okay, you know what? Like, while nobody is trying to cancel us, and nobody is saying that we can't do what we want to do, they are saying, hey, you know what? Like, you did this, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel nicely about it. And the thing is, it's like everyone would be happy. Because once again, there would be a safe space and there would be a free space, and they would coexist. And it would literally just be like, if you don't like the movies, go to the skating rink instead. If you feel like you want to go to the movies one day, you can come to the movies. Just know that you're going to sit down and you're going to watch the movie for an hour and a half, and you're not going to do any skating. And if you don't want to do that, then stay at the skating rink, man. And I don't think that comedians are going to make it so that all of their content is one way. To be honest with you, I think it would be good. Because I think that there would be comedians who are like, okay, I can get down with this. I will make content for the free space, and I'll make content for the safe space. Or they'll say, I'll release 2 versions of my special. I'll release a version of my special that contains all of the sensitive content, and I'll release a version of my special that doesn't contain that sensitive content. And there will be 2 specials, and we'll combine the views. I think that if we did that, man, like, there really could be a world where we didn't have to have this fucking argument about what you should say and what you shouldn't say. Now, what this also means is if you do make one of these jokes in the safe space, you're an asshole. That's what that means. I'm sorry. Like, if we want to really do this, if we really want to get this done, I stand behind that. I don't know if we should fucking cancel you right away. You know what I mean? It depends on what you fucking say. But I stand behind the people who are like, look, man, you don't go on Conan and make a joke about molestation. You don't fucking do that. I stand behind you. I recognize that there are people who are seriously fucked up and they don't need that shit in their life. So yeah, man, that's my whole take on the thing. And that way people could make those jokes about trans people. And they could look back on it 5 years later and say, you know what, I made that joke when I didn't really understand these people. And I thought it was funny at the time, but now I feel differently. It's a good thing that it was labeled sensitive content, because I don't want trans people to see that. And that's what I think we need to do, man. Like, that's what I think we need. And I think that the fact that like we haven't really thought of it or come to the conclusion yet, the fact that I only remembered about this because of a conversation I had with my little brother like a month ago, it's just crazy to me that it just goes to show you that, like, the ability to have original thoughts is really fucking hard. And this isn't even an original thought because we already do it with movies. It really comes down to you being able to speak with other people and come to conclusions about things, and maybe, you know, put a pin in something and then revisit it later. So, I don't know, man. I hope that somebody important fucking sees this. I hope that they see this and they take the idea and they fucking do something with it. Because I want to save freedom of expression, but I also want to save people's feelings. And I think that this is the way how. This is really the way we do it. And I think that I have finally come to, like, that is my opinion on freedom of speech. I don't know if a person has a problem with that opinion, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Because, like, man, as far as I'm concerned, that opinion is like the democracy of freedom of speech opinions. It's not perfect, but it's the best fucking thing we got, man. Like, if you aren't down with that, I don't know what the fuck I could do for you. Unless you just want it all and you don't want to compromise. So, yeah, man. I made a joke about consent and it was a little fucking risky, and I'm not gonna do that again. I'm gonna take my word on it. I'm gonna state my word on it. I'm gonna save jokes like that are really fucked up, that could really trigger somebody, for occasions on which I could tell people, you know, this joke contains that, or this joke contains this. And I'm gonna try and bring that with me wherever I go, and hopefully it just catches on and people start to label things not just MA, not just mature content, but sensitive content. And they list whatever that sensitive content is, so somebody knows by first glance, like, oh, it says sexual assault, suicide, racist, racism. Oh, I know that this program contains that sensitive content. You know what? I don't want to be triggered today. I'm not going to watch it. Anyways, I had to get that off my chest because I didn't know how I felt about making the joke. I mean, because it feels bad either way. And so I figured out what I feel, just sitting here talking it out, finally getting my idea out. So that's good. Next thing I wanted to talk about, I guess I should. I'll start with changing with the times, just because it kind of relates to what I was just talking about. If you don't change with the times, it doesn't make you wise. It doesn't mean you know more than everybody else. It just means that you're outdated software. The fact that somebody can't even fathom transgender people, it means that they haven't received their update yet. And because I'm 23 and I realize this, I realized that I almost fell victim to this trap when I was like 18. I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, man, like if you really want to be on top of the world's issues, you seriously have to, like, when a new idea comes along, you got to take the time to be like, you know what? Even though I think this sounds like bullshit, what if it wasn't bullshit? How could this not be bullshit? You got to do that. Because if you don't do that, man, you're just gonna assume that what you've always known makes the most amount of sense, and you're not even gonna like really give the other ideas the time of day. I guess changing with the times is something like keeping an open mind, but it's even more than that. Because I only really understood this transgender thing once I seriously thought about it. And I'm talking like it's been years that I've had like been thinking about the thing, and I only really came to a proper conclusion on it like a year ago, like less than a year ago. So it's like, I think like the official conclusion was like a couple weeks ago, and like a year ago I kind of got it, and like before that I kind of didn't get it, and it was very slow. You can't just have an open mind. You got to have an active mind. Your mind has got to be active. If you just take the idea in and you're like, oh, I can see their perspective, but you aren't actively trying to understand the perspective, like then you're just going to be like, oh, no, I see what you're saying, but I just don't agree with you because of all of these reasons that don't really address what you're getting at. It's easy to think you understand something or understand someone when you actually don't understand them at all. Because you have an idea in your head of who they are, but that idea usually isn't right. The truth is, your idea of other people is only based on the interactions that you've had with them, or the things that they have, or that other people have said about them to you. Things that you've seen them do or whatever. Those items could never summarize that person to you. So you only have a very small fraction of an idea of a person in your head. Don't assume that you know them. Don't assume that you know what they're saying. Don't assume that you're right. Don't assume that what they're saying is ridiculous. Even if you think you're right, don't assume that what they're saying is ridiculous. Because as soon as you do that, it's absurd. It's absurd. As soon as you do that, then you're not really, you know what I mean? Like you're just waiting to smack it down. You know what I mean? You're just waiting to slap the shit out of it. And it's tough because there are those things that it's like, well, they're not. You know that this shit is bullshit, right? Like flat earthers, people know that that's bullshit, right? There's science that I've heard that has been cited to me that points out that that's bullshit. I've been in a plane and just seen like the curvature of the earth to know that it's bullshit. You know what I mean? But it's like
what I realized is that people believed that trans individuals were like flat earthers, and that's not the case. And that's why it's hard. It's hard to change with the times, because in order for you to be a coherent human being, unfortunately, you have to have an idea of yourself. And the self comes with beliefs. Those beliefs don't change easily, because if they did, you couldn't be a coherent human being. If you believe that you should help the poor and you should give them money when you have the extra money, but every other day you decided against it, then you just be giving money sometimes and not giving money other times, based on like, not based on, but sporadically, in a way that is not consistent. Like what am I trying to say? If you believed in benevolence one week and didn't believe in benevolence the other week, are you a benevolent person? Like, and I mean believe it, like really believe it. Do you really believe in benevolence? Because if you really believe in it and you think it's a part of you, like it's a part of who you are, you can't change that like flippantly, because then your whole identity is going to be rearranged if benevolence is a big part of your life. So what I'm saying is your belief about sex and men and women, it can't just change sporadically either. Because you, as a person, are a man or a woman or a male or a female, and you act according to that belief. So you have an entrenched idea of these things. And for that to change, you really gotta like fucking jackhammer the shit out of the cement that's in your brain. And that's tough, man. It's tough to change with the times. And I'm wondering, like, what thing now? Because I was wondering, like, what thing before am I not being progressive about? Not just being progressive for the sake of being progressive, but being progressive in the sense that it's like, no, you fucking idiot. This isn't bullshit. This is real. These people are really suffering. They actually believe this thing about themselves. They really are this thing that they are saying. It took a long time to see that. What is the next thing that I'm like that about? And, okay, I'm going to say this, and I need you guys to bear with me here, and I need you to not write me off immediately. That is the entire point of everything that I have just fucking said up until this point. I need you to fucking hear me now, okay? I want to start off by saying, and honestly, despite everything I've just said, there are some people who are going to see this, and immediately they're going to go, oh, fuck this guy, and facepalm, and not listen to anything that I'm about to say. For those of you who are really willing to just fucking hear me out here, just listen. I want to start off by saying, it is absolutely, positively, under no circumstance, okay to take advantage of a child sexually. That is never okay. Predatory behaviors are never okay. Okay? I do not believe that pedophiles have a right to be with children that is harming the children, and you do not have a right to harm others, right? I believe that pedophiles should be incarcerated for what they do to children. I believe that, especially if they're a serial pedophilist, right? I do not believe that they deserve to be burned alive or tortured or killed right out for being pedophiles. There are so many of you right now, if you're hearing this, if you're listening to this, who are like, fuck you, bullshit, fuck that, blah, blah. Hear me out. I have seen videos of people who I think are pedophiles or who are attracted to children talking about the fact that they do not want to be. Okay? That is the first premise. That it is okay. The first premise is this. Okay. They do not want to be attracted to the children. They just are for whatever reason. Okay? Can we all agree that you didn't wake up this morning and choose to be attracted to the sex that you're attracted to? Because I can tell you right now, I didn't choose to be attracted to women. To females, sorry. I just am. Can we all agree that at some point, people thought that gay men chose to be gay? And that was a fucked up thing to believe? Can we all agree that Andrew Scheer, I think, did they ask him if he believed that gay people are born to be? Okay. Can we all agree that there are politicians today who are roasted for not acknowledging that gay people are born gay? Okay. So therefore, it is possible. You all know it's possible. Because you sane people would agree with me, I would hope, that gay people or straight people don't choose who or what they're attracted to. You guys fucking know this. Okay? Now I want you to please take that same idea and self-righteousness and apply it to pedophiles. I don't think that all of them, some of them might just be sick fucks. I don't know. I don't know much about them. But I don't believe that all of them made this decision to like it. Like, I think that they really are suffering from something pretty awful. I think that what they really are dealing with is a compulsion and an urge that they didn't choose, that they probably didn't even fucking want, but nevertheless, they have. For that reason, I don't believe that they should be killed or burned alive or tortured like people say. That's fucked. That's fucking Spanish Inquisition barbaric shit. Why the fuck does anybody say stuff like that? And people do say stuff like that. But I think that it's one of these things where it's like you have this belief that is so deeply entrenched, you can't even see the fucking lunacy of it. Like, that's crazy. And the reality of the situation is this. We say this about pedophiles like instantly. Like if you did it to one child, instantly you need to be burned. You need to be burned, you need to be tortured. But what's interesting is that the same stigma does not follow. It's so interesting. The same stigma does not follow other crimes. If someone is a murderer, like, you may hear, oh, they deserve to rot in jail for the rest of their life. But for some reason, the same hate and disdain is not there. And I've noticed, and honestly, I don't know if I'm the only one who notices this, but I've noticed that, like, the level of hatred is very desperate. When arguably they are both horrifying things. Like, they're both horrifying. Irrespective of how much you can or cannot control your urges. Like, please do not do either of those things. It's awful. We don't say the same thing when we hear about somebody who may have raped somebody else. You don't hear that. In fact, oh my fucking God, there are fucking TED Talks where a rapist and the victim are like friends in the future and talking and shit, even though, both of them are traumatized, obviously. Nobody is saying kill the guy on stage who was the rapist. But you say it about pedophiles. And I know why you say it. You say it because they do what they do to kids. I get it. I do. It's fucked up. I don't think it's a. I obviously think it's horrible. But what I'm saying is this. We don't choose our curses. That's why they're curses, man. Most people don't choose their curses. Most people just have them. Alright? Okay? So while I think they should be put in jail because it's like, look, man, if you can't fucking control yourself and you're abducting and molesting children, and, you know, some people are even worse, like killing them, you know what I mean? Like, we gotta put you the fuck away. You know what I mean? But it's like I almost can't be mad at them. Even if I am genuinely mad, you know, even if somebody abducted my kid and did some horrible shit to them, it's almost like you should feel bad for them instead. Because I don't assume that they did that thing even though they didn't really feel like they needed to. If you're gonna do something like that, you probably have problems. You're probably really fucked up, and you're probably fighting a compulsion that you can no longer fight. This is an idealistic philosophy that I'm about to spit to you, okay? And it's really not even my philosophy. It's fucking Sam Harris's philosophy. If I had the same brain as that pedophile, would I not have done the same thing? If you had my brain, cell for cell, atom for atom, whatever, would you not do the same things that I do? If that's true, and if murder or rape or pedophilia or any of these crimes, some of them, you know what I mean, some of these crimes are akin to something like being addicted to cigarettes, can you really, can you see how the person obviously did something horrible, but is also a victim of their own crime, in that they just can't control themselves? They can't control the fact that they are attracted to. Now, I'm not gonna say that you can't be mad at somebody who's in prison for doing it, because you shouldn't have done it. Just because you have the urge to do this thing does not mean that you should do it. I basically said all of that to make it clear to you so that you can realize that it's not so simple. It's not like the person's just this monster who woke up and was like, I just want to fuck somebody's life up. It's probably more like this person is dealing with a monster that's inside of them that they really can't control. But you can still be mad at them. Like, you can be like, hey man, fuck you. Like, if you knew you were going to do this, you should have checked yourself in to a fucking hospital. You shouldn't have let it bubble like that. I can agree. I can say, like, I could be mad at them for that. I could be mad at them for not taking the necessary precautions to control whatever bullshit they had dealing with. I've said to myself multiple times, if for whatever reason I have some sort of psychotic break and I think that I might go on like a rampage or something, I don't know why I would do that. I would go to the police station immediately and be like, look, man, if you don't fucking lock me up, I'm going to do something bad. That's what they should have done. You know what I mean? So you can be mad at them for that. But just the sole act of attraction, you can't be mad at them for. They got no control over it. You can't be. You can't be. Like, I believe this. In the future, one day, it will be socially acceptable for somebody to say, I am attracted to children, but I do not act on this impulse. I tell all of you this because you have a right to know, and it is a part of who I am, and I cannot run away from it. one day people are going to respect others for saying it. Because if you don't say it and you don't acknowledge it, it may be worse. It may lead to acting on these things when you shouldn't. My point is this though, like they really don't want. I don't see how you could choose something like that. And so you can't be mad at them just for being attracted to them. You have to be mad at them for actually doing something about it. That's the difference. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be mad at you if you think about killing your boss. I'm going to be mad at you if you actually kill your boss. Like if you actually do that shit, I'm going to be upset with you. Whack Your Boss is a video game. I'm going to play that online after this. Whack Your Boss. I remember that game. Wow. It's a fucked up game. Anyways. So that was that. Just changing your mindset and giving you an example of something that might test you. It might test you. Like you really gotta ask yourself, am I being honest with myself? Like did what he said just now make sense? Is there any truth to what he said? Is all of it bullshit or is some of it true? Is some of it bullshit? Is all of it true? Like you gotta ask yourself. And be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself and that's the thing. We do this. We lie to ourselves and we try to convince ourselves that we don't really think something. But you do. And you lie. And you say, no, I'm not thinking that. Yeah, you fucking are. Don't lie to yourself. Okay? Be honest. Ask yourself what you think is true and what you think is bullshit and what you agree with and what you don't agree with. Genuinely. Violence. This is one of those things. So I was thinking to myself, what if in the future, because violence, when you really think about it, is like a very primitive thing that was used for survival, okay? What if violence in the future just doesn't exist as an acceptable form in any way, shape, at all? What if violence in hockey, violent sports like combat sports, violent sports like football, what if they just are completely banned? Would that be good for society? What if any violence that you wanted to experience, you could only experience in the virtual world? Would that be good? I don't know. A part of me wants to say yes. A part of me wants to say like, hey man, if we could just get rid of violence in every way, shape, or form, I feel like I don't know, man. I mean, that would include war, is what I mean. That would include war. I mean, like when I say get rid of violence, I mean basically restructure the world so that violence is almost something that just doesn't exist. And this is actually not even my idea, really. This is from an anime called Psycho Pass, which if you like anime, listen to me. Fuck you if you don't like anime. But if you don't like anime, go watch Psycho Pass. I'll tell you right now, it is a great introductory to anime. If you're not into the crazy superpowers and the shit like that, and Goku powering up and fucking alchemy and Naruto and all that shit, go watch Psycho Pass. All right, it's just out there enough to give you an idea of the possibilities of anime, but it is just normal enough to be kind of like, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean? And it's very philosophical and it'll make you think about society and the way that things are. And I think that it's good that you fucking do that. So you go and watch that and you fucking think about shit, okay? By the way, fucking do that. Fucking think about some shit from time to time, okay? It's good. It's good for your brain. But yeah, so like, like, what if we just got to a point where like people just didn't even like know what violence was, you know? Or like if they knew what violence was, they just didn't even like they just never really saw it, you know what I mean? Like in the same way that I've never seen a duel in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like people used to duel in the street, and when you were a kid, you could see that. People used to get hanged and shit, and you could fucking watch that. I don't know what the fuck that looks like now, unless I go to some crazy website, you know. And I have done that before. Um, for my own reasons, I was thinking about doing some forensic work, and I was like, I wonder if I'd be able to handle it. So I watched a bunch of fucked up videos, man. I saw crazy shit. I saw some crazy shit, man. I saw somebody man, I saw a dude get shot in the fucking head point blank by 3 other guys. You know what's crazy? His head didn't even blow out. You know when people get shot in the head in movies and like brains fly out? That's bullshit. From what I saw, there's just a hole. Like somebody just hole punches your head and you just fucking go dead. It was fucked up. It was like so quick. I was like, oh, holy fuck. Anyways, yeah, I saw that. I saw somebody hang themselves. I saw somebody get hit by a car. I saw somebody turned into mulch by a truck. And they were just streaked across the road. These are things we're not acquainted with is kind of like what I'm trying to get at here. And my point is, what if one day violence in the world outside of fiction is just not allowed? Would that be good? Because I find that like a lot of what we as humans are trying to do is separate ourselves further and further from nature. You know, recognize that it is absolutely, completely abnormal for you to be clean all the time. Not normal. It's not. Like, think about that. The fact that you can shower 2 times a day, 3 times a day if you really want to. I shower like once a day. And always have a clean asshole? That didn't exist. Man, you're an animal. Humans smelled just as bad as a wild dog did. But we manipulate our environment and make it so that we don't have to live like that. We're separating ourselves further and further and further from nature. And a lot of the problems that we have in society today are a product of us trying to deal with our natural instincts in a world that isn't built for them. So, somebody getting pregnant out of wedlock, it isn't because that they have poor impulse control. I mean, maybe they do. But it isn't because they're a bad person. It isn't because they're more slutty than everybody else. It's because when we were in civilizations prior to this one, getting pregnant at 16 made sense. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's normal for you to want to fuck. If all of us could just not want to fuck, like, you'd be surprised. Look, man, if you didn't know what an orgasm felt like, okay, let's run it to you this way. You don't know what an orgasm feels like. Okay, they say, okay, you have 2 options. You can go through life normally, and there's a possibility that you will have sex a little bit too early, have a kid, it'll ruin your life, or you'll catch a sexual disease and it'll kill you or ruin your life. Or I can give you, and this is another idea that isn't mine, I can give you a pill. This is from The Giver, a book. I can give you a pill that will suppress your urges until you are old enough and stable enough to have sex with people and not have to worry about your life being ruined. And this is prior to you knowing anything about sex or feelings or orgasms or anything. Every one of us would say yes. We would all be like, yeah, man. Wait, so you mean that like once I get my shit together, I can like fuck or whatever? You'd be like, yeah, and like I don't really know what this is, but it's supposed to be like super awesome, but I can just kind of save it for when it won't fuck me over. Yeah, we'd be like, yes. Everyone would be like, yes. The issue is you can't do that. The issue is you're evolutionarily hardwired to want to fuck at that age when it's like really bad for you to be fucking. But we all do it. We all do it. We can't help ourselves. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that basically what we're trying to do is get farther because of the way that our society is. We kind of have to force the savagery out of ourselves. We kind of have to force the animal out of ourselves in order to survive well. Not just to survive, but to survive well in nature as it is now. Because I'll tell you something right now. We're in nature. This is nature. We're a bunch of monkeys and we built forts. That's what this is. You know what I mean? Not to be condescending or anything like that, but I'm just trying to explain to you that shit is real. Natural selection isn't over. If you go out into the woods right now and a wolf finds you, it will fucking eat you like it isn't a game. So, the problem is we do not have an evolutionary pressure that would change our human species over the next 2 million years to make it so that we don't want to have sex until it makes sense to have sex. We don't have that evolutionary pressure. And the thing is, we don't even know what that evolutionary pressure would be, because evolutionary pressures are natural. They're things that we have no control over. And so it's sort of impossible for us to expect that our urges and our evolutionary makeup and our desires and our things like that will change through mating. They have to change epigenetically. Epigenetically meaning things that sort of happen outside of procreative production, I think. So an epigenetic change is like a change that happens to an organism as it lives. What that means, though, is that every single human being is responsible for their own shit. Every single human being is responsible for their own evolutionary reactions and responses to the environment around them. So I, and I alone, am responsible for curbing my more primal urges. I say all of this to get to this point. Violence and the gratification that we gain from violence and viewing violence, can it be replaced? Can we get rid of it? Because if the answer is yes, why the fuck wouldn't we want to get rid of it? Because let me tell you something right now. It's like when I get angry and I want to punch something, it feels good to want to punch something and even better to actually punch something. However, if I could re-hardwire my brain to make it so that I didn't have to punch something, what would be the downside to doing that? What is the upside to violence other than that it feels good? It's the same thing with the sex, man. It's like the only upside is that it feels good. There's all of this negative shit that comes with it. The fact that I, for some reason, want to beat the shit out of people in a cage, I mean, not as much as I did before, but like that I'd be into that, you know what I mean? Sort of, you know, is irrational considering what it could do to my brain. CTE is a real thing. At the same time, I can't help but feel like there are frustrations and things inside of me that make me just want to enact violence. And so, there's a part of me that wonders if it's even possible to get to a place where no violence exists. How you get to that place, I mean, it's really about the person working on themselves. It really would require everybody to direct their attention and their time and their focus to those things that would make them so tranquil they never would want to use violence in any situation. And if they ever used violence, it would be purely for self-defense and have nothing to do with the gratification of choking somebody unconscious. That's different though. I think jujitsu is a different kind of violence. I think jujitsu is probably the only acceptable form of violence that we could keep around. All other forms of violence would probably be off the table. Um, so yeah, man, like I really think that in the future, and I really believe this, I really believe in the future we're gonna get rid of like hockey as it is. We're gonna get rid of football completely. We're gonna get rid of rugby. All of these sports, we're gonna be like, it is a violation of human rights to let people like do this to themselves. Like we can't allow this CTE shit to go on any further. You're gonna have to do touch football, or you're gonna have to just stop playing it. And I don't know why I just feel it. I just feel it in my bones, like that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen because I feel like we're trying to get farther and farther away from this thing, this monster instinct is what we're doing. And there are things about that instinct that were good in the past that are just not good now. And when I think about violence, I realize that really the only thing about violence that is good is that it scratches an itch. That's it. It scratches an itch. It doesn't do anything else. You know what I mean? So um that's another thing that I think that the times are going to change in such a way that we just don't even have violence anymore. Um, but yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, in order for that to happen, we're basically gonna have to work. Every human being is gonna have to work on themselves, A, and B, society as a whole is gonna have to work to a place where everybody conclusively goes, okay, let's get rid of violence. Also, that can never happen, or it is very unlikely that that will happen while wars are still going on. It'll be really hard to justify getting rid of violent sports when we're training people to kill others. It is possible that somebody could say violence is now a privilege only afforded to those people who are willing to die for their country. That could happen. I can see a world where, separate and aside from jujitsu, that a citizen could learn on their own, any sort of high intensity violence that could cause like bleeding and like serious bleeding and unconsciousness would be just completely removed or outlawed. People are going to start to say things like, I mean, it's the same thing with guns in a degree. Like, people are going to get rid of guns, and then they're going to say, why does somebody need to know how to, I don't know, kick another person's head off? And it's possible that they might just get rid of violent things like Muay Thai in an attempt to pacify the population. While I don't really, I don't know, man. I don't know if it would be a good thing or a bad thing, so I don't know if I agree with it or not. I just love Muay Thai. But I also know that my love for Muay Thai would also throw me into a ring and risk my susceptibility to CTE. So once again, my love of Muay Thai isn't even really a good thing for my health long term if you think about it like that. You know what I'm saying? So, and despite me saying this now, I'd probably still do a Muay Thai fight. You know what I mean? Like, just because I'm that kind of guy. Like, I just like it. I mean, maybe less likely to do it now, but my point is that like your urges don't stop you. Your urges don't what's the word? Succumb to your rationality, man. It doesn't work all the time. You can rationalize something and get to the right answer 50 times in a row, but if the urge just won't leave you alone, like eventually you're gonna have to do it, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And so, like, you got to be true to yourself. You can't lie to yourself and say, well, I've thought about this and I've come to this conclusion and that's that. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes the heart just wants what it wants, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it. So, that would be a reason why violence might not be able to dissipate. It may be the truth that people just don't work on themselves like that. It may be the truth that people can't just pacify themselves like that. It may be the truth that there are too many societal issues that exist to nullify something like violence. If you wanted to get rid of violence, you would have to get rid of poverty, inequality. Like, there are so many problems you would have to solve before you could solve the problem of violence. So, like, realistically, this thing about violence is probably, unless we somehow find a way to make everybody, for the most part, happy in a society, probably not going to happen. Probably never going to happen. But if it does happen, it will not be, I think, on a huge, huge worldwide scale. If it is on a huge, huge worldwide scale, it would probably be because something. First off, it'd be millions of years down the line, I think. I mean, maybe not millions, but like hundreds of thousands of years, I think, are going to have to pass before that's. Hundreds of. Who knows, man? A long time is going to have to pass. I don't know shit. I've been alive for 23 years. I can't fucking estimate that. But the point is, probably not millions, though. I think maybe like 100,000, like, maybe like 300,000 at most. Like 100,000 at least, like 200, say 200,000 years. 200,000 years, and the Earth should be, like, in a good enough place that, like, a society is going to be able to be like, okay, we have no violence here. But there's just too much hatred and anger out there to get rid of it at this point. I think that the truth of the matter is, something like combat sports has really helped me, somebody who has a lot of hatred and a lot of anger. And if I didn't have that, I don't know what the fuck I would have done. I mean, I probably would have found something else. Maybe something that wasn't so violent, but at the end of the day, man, like, when you really just hate something, the best thing for you is to go punch a bag, or roll around on the ground with somebody else and play simulated murder, as my jujitsu mentor says. Not that whole sentence, but simulated murder. Funny term. So yeah, man. The world is pretty crazy, and I think that that's like the only reason why living forever would be kind of cool. Living forever would be cool if you could, like, if you had the means to live differently every couple, like, years. Living forever would be cool if you had the means to, like, okay, well, I lived in, Hamilton, Ontario for however many years, and then I moved to fucking Chicago, Illinois, and I lived there for 20 years, and then I moved to, and, like, you just live all over the world and just learn new things all the time. Then living forever would be kind of cool. Because, to be honest with you, it would be no different, and I believe this, it would be no different than living today, now. Because the truth of the matter is, like, while you can say, oh, I've been alive for a long time, feeling alive wouldn't feel any different. You're always in the now. The now is always what you know. The only reason that you would hate your life is if you came into some crazy, fucked up depression that made you want to kill yourself, right? And barring that doesn't happen, there'd be no reason for you to be like, I hate life. There'd be no reason, because you don't hate life now. You've been alive forever, or it must feel like it at this point. You don't feel like you want to clock out, do you? You want to live more. And I'm sure that the people who are 75 feel the same way. If they had a young body, I'm sure they'd be like, yeah, I mean, I've been alive for a long time, but forever is all I know. I'll just keep going. So, honestly, man, it may be a good thing that humans expire, or else there'd just be way too many of us on this fucking planet. But, anyways, man, I'm fucking hungry. I'm gonna go eat some shit. That's all I got to say for right now, man. That's the dealio, you know what I mean? That's the fucking shit, bro. That's what's up.